What if pain isn't the problem, but actually the pathway back to you? You're listening to The Leadership Wound, From Pain to Permission. I'm Amanda Rohr, your host and founder of Authentically You, coaching for embodied spiritual living and leading. This is where we get honest about the real cost of leadership, the burnout, the pretending, the rejection, and the return to your authentic self. Because this isn't about performance, it's about permission. Welcome to the leader you've always been.
When it comes to a physical wound, we don't hesitate to seek help. But when the wound is to our heart, our mind, or our soul, we suddenly feel hesitant. We wonder if it's selfish, irresponsible, or even unnecessary to invest in counseling or coaching or other forms of care. And yet here's the truth. The invisible wounds often cost us more than the visible ones. Welcome back to the Leadership Wound Podcast. I'm Amanda Rohr, your host and founder of Authentically You, coaching for embodied spiritual living and leading. This is the space where we talk about the hidden cost of leadership, the exhaustion, the rejection, the pain that too often gets brushed aside. Together we name those wounds and discover what it looks like to move from pain to permission so you can live and lead as your true self. And today we're talking about something every leader faces, but few want to admit, and that is the wounds that leadership leaves behind. The ones we think we've moved past, but that still follow us into the next room, into the next role, and into the next relationship. So let me give you a picture. Imagine for a moment that you cut your hand deeply. At first you might ignore it. You might keep moving or cover it up, pretend it's not a big deal. But left untreated, that wound doesn't go away. Instead, it festers, it spreads infection, it makes even the simplest tasks harder and more painful. And here's what's interesting. When it comes to a physical wound, we don't hesitate to seek help. We'll spend all kinds of money to see a doctor, buy medicine, or take time off to recover from our injuries. And nobody questions it. But when the wound is to our heart, our mind, or our soul, we suddenly feel hesitant. We wonder if it's selfish, irresponsible, or even unnecessary to invest in counseling or coaching or other forms of care. And yet here's the truth. The invisible wounds often cost us more than the visible ones. Because when you invest time and resource into healing what you can't see, the fruit shows up in what everyone else sees. In your presence, your clarity, your relationships, and even your results. I wonder sometimes if we knew that the invisible wounds actually become visible, if we would spend more time and resource on healing those wounds too. That's why healing matters, because leadership wounds left untreated don't just fade away. They show up how you show up in every area of your life. Here's the thing. Leadership wounds don't always come in big dramatic moments though. They often come from everyday experiences that many of us brush off or tell ourselves, I've dealt with that already, when really all it's doing is following you where you go. It looks like pouring hours into mentoring a team member, doing everything possible to help them grow, only to realize they're not willing to change. You tell yourself you've moved on, but you still second guess your abilities from that experience. You're second guessing your calling and your worth as a leader. It looks like becoming the target of someone else's unresolved pain. You know, the ones who project their mess onto you, twist the story, or even gaslight you. You convince yourself you're over it, but then you catch yourself doubting your own motives and questioning your memory. Leadership wounds look like when you're being misperceived. If you're an introvert, people assume you're disengaged when really you're just thoughtful and processing. Or if you're an extrovert, people call you too much or too loud. You shrug it off in the moment, but weeks later, their words are echoing when you step into a meeting or try something new. It looks like stepping out with courage, launching an initiative, making a tough decision, or trying something new, only to be met with harsh criticism instead of support. You tell yourself you've let it go, but the sting still lingers and makes you more hesitant the next time. A leadership wound looks like giving your all to a community or a workplace, only to watch people walk away without explanation or acknowledgement. You try to act like it didn't bother you, but deep down it leaves you cautious about giving that much of yourself again. These wounds may not make the headlines, but they do follow us. They shape how we show up, how we trust, and how much of ourselves we're willing to risk in leadership the next time. And then, of course, there's the bigger wounds, the moments that shake your foundation. Maybe you were faithfully serving in your organization, but you found yourself chewed up by the politics and forced out of your role, even though you poured your heart into it. Thinking time would just heal it, months later you find yourself still being triggered whenever you're asked to lead again. Or maybe you're the CEO or founder of a business that you built with integrity, only to be betrayed by a trusted partner. You tell yourself you're stronger, you're better than that. But years later, you're struggling to find yourself trusting the team that's around you. Or maybe you're a leader who left your organization under a cloud of conflict or false perceptions. The next time you move into a new position, the pain follows, and it's influencing every decision you make. Whether subtle or severe, these wounds leave scars. They don't just fade with time, and pretending they didn't happen only deepens the damage. So what exactly is a leadership wound? A leadership wound is the emotional and spiritual impact of harm experienced in the role of leading. It's the lasting impact of rejection, betrayal, criticism, misperception, or unhealthy systems that diminish your worth. A leadership wound forms when you pour out your best, your vision, your courage, your care, yourself, and it's dismissed, attacked, misunderstood, or taken for granted. It's not just a hard moment, it's the kind of pain that lingers, quietly shapes how you see yourself, how you trust others, and how boldly you're willing to lead again. But here's the key. A wound is more than just a hard moment. It's when that moment leaves a mark, when it continues to shape how you show up long after the moment is gone. So what happens when you don't heal? Well, at work you become defensive. You become a micromanager, or you withdraw. You overcompensate in other areas. At home, our leadership wounds look like distraction, irritability, emotional distance. And inside, you feel cynicism, numbness, self-doubt, or even shame. The cost of avoiding healing isn't just professional, it's deeply personal. And that's because how you live and lead are so intertwined. And often it's the people who love us the most who feel the fallout first. So let's be clear, healing is not pretending it didn't happen. And healing is not a forgive and forget kind of thing. Healing is not ignoring either the pain in the name of being strong. Healing is naming what happened, processing it, grieving it in a way that acknowledges the pain without letting it define you. Because here's the truth, pain that isn't transformed is transferred. If we don't deal with our wounds, we pass them on to our teams, our families, and even ourselves. But the good news is you don't have to do this work alone. Think back to the physical wound you had. If it's deep enough, you wouldn't just slap on a bandage, you'd go to the doctor. You'd let someone skilled in healing help you. Emotional and leadership wounds are the same thing. Left alone, they fester. But in safe, supportive relationships, they begin to heal. That's why coaching, counseling, and mentoring matter and why they're important in your leadership journey. Having someone walk along with you gives you perspective. It allows you to see yourself and the situation with clear and fresh eyes. And it creates space for wounds to become wisdom on the journey moving forward. Leadership wounds encompass both your spirit, mind, and your body. Your spirit heals when you slow down. Taking the time to pause and feel what is actually going on, rather than pushing past the pain, means you're honoring not only yourself, but what that wound is teaching you. If you're brave enough, I have a couple reflection questions to help you pause and feel what's going on. The first is, where do I most need to experience God's love in my leadership right now? And what hidden pain have I avoided bringing before Him? Personally, I found so much relief in just pausing, being silent before my Creator to acknowledge how I feel and what has happened to me. I encourage you to take about 5 to 10 minutes to pause in stillness, to deeply breathe, to maybe even pray a simple phrase like, "Lord, here I am. Search me and know me." Allow yourself to feel what you've carried. Honoring the pain is the first step forward, because you can't heal it if you can't feel it first. Our minds are a powerful force within us. Your mind heals when you stop replaying the false stories and you start naming the wound for what really is going on. Each wound is like a fingerprint, unique and part of your story. And the question is, what story are you telling yourself about this wound? The ability to return to the truth and name what is going on allows you to accept it without trying to change the past. So the questions, if you're brave enough, are this: what story do I keep telling myself when this wound resurfaces? How does this story align or misalign with God's truth about me? Being willing to accept the wound doesn't mean you justify it. It means you're present with God, acknowledging what has happened and allowing God to assign meaning to that wound. If we stay in denial about our wounds, we'll never be able to accept the reality of what has happened and move through it. I encourage you to practice journaling, actually writing down what is going on in your head about the wound. Write down what happened. Give it a name. Maybe it's rejection, betrayal. Once it's named, practice accepting it without blame or minimization. Acceptance is not surrender. It's the soil where transformation begins. Next, we move to our bodies. Your bodies carry leadership wounds in ways you may not even notice. Intention, posture, or energy. Healing comes when you tend to your body with compassion, allowing pain to move through rather than to get stuck. Here are a couple reflection questions to ask yourself as you begin to tend your wound. Where in my body do I feel this wound's weight? Or how might my leadership look different if I embodied healing instead of trying to survive the wound? Practice choosing an embodied action this week. Maybe it's a walk, a stretching exercise, perhaps breath work, or a creative expression. As you move, imagine releasing the wound's grip upon you. This is just a glimpse of the work that I do inside my coaching pathways. In the Leadership Wound Healing Path signature coaching package, I guide leaders through 4 steps. The first is feel the wound. The second, name it. The third, accept it. And the fourth, tend to it. In my signature package, The Way of Metanoia, I help leaders practice a simple rhythm of transformation called pause, return, and embody. Each offers a unique pathway for healing, resilience, and authentic leadership. So, if you found yourself today naming a wound, you might have a question: where do I start? Well, the first thing is you start by naming the wound. Take a moment and acknowledge what is actually going on. And then ask yourself, do I want to stay in this position forever? Or do I actually want to move through the woundedness into wholeness and healing? If the answer is yes, I always encourage people to seek a safe community. Healing happens faster when you're not alone. So share your story with a trusted peer, coach, or mentor. Because unhealed wounds will always shape your leadership. But when you name them and you're in the midst of community, you can work towards wholeness. As we close today, I want to leave you with a question. What if the wound you thought you left behind is still shaping the way you show up today? You don't have to stay stuck there. Healing isn't about erasing your story. It's about reclaiming it. It's about turning the pain that once held you back into wisdom that carries you forward, from pain to permission. If this conversation stirred something in you, I encourage you to take the next brave step. I offer a free 30-minute call with me at authenticleadershipcollective.com. There we'll talk about what's keeping you stuck and form a pathway to healing so that you can begin to live and lead authentically. And while you're there at my website, you can download my free resources by signing up for my weekly email that includes leadership insights and a bunch of other free stuff, like a morning meditation and a guide for 10 traps that keep leaders stuck and how to break free from them. Because leadership will always leave marks. We're human, but we don't have to live marked by those wounds. We can live marked by our healing. Until next time, lead like you.